6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello everybody, and welcome to my live stream. Today I will be refining the quick crawl function, currently named one-click_crawl, that I just put into Pipulate, which gives you the ability to just say new links equals pipulate.oneclickcrawl, give it a site name, and you get back all the links from the site, which is still in memory from my Jupyter Notebook session from earlier today, which is really yesterday. It's about 4:30 a.m. and I'm getting started on my work. And yeah, this is my continuing commitment to commitment and consistency, a la Robert Cialdini, where you state you're going to do something in a somewhat public forum, and you are more likely to stay consistent with your stated behavior because the expectations are on you now. So there's a few things that I'd like to fix. First of all, I don't like this whole one-click_crawl when it's really just a crawl, and the crawl is always just going one click deep. But I already have a function called crawl, def crawl, which is actually even referred to here. And there it is up there. So this is the crawl function that gathers the links, and this is the crawl function that does the crawl. So it seems to me this should actually be a links function, or at least get links. Let's just call it links. I like avoiding the underscore if we possibly can. So change word into links. So you get links given a site. Now we want to make sure I'm not using the links variable internally, which of course I am. We don't want that sort of conflict. So so we have links 1 and links 2. I'm going to highlight the function. I am going to replace links 2 with links 3. And then I'm going to replace links 1 with links 2. Okay. And now I'm going to search for just links by itself, because I want 1 in there. I want 1 in there. I want 1 in there. And that should be it. Local links is interesting. I'll address that, but now I have links 1, 2, and 3 for consistency's sake. The function itself is called links, and there's no internal collision. And so now links here, oh, interesting. One more collision. Links gets used here and here. Now it would work like that, but in order to avoid potential leakage and collision, one-click crawl is going to, yeah, okay, there's no harm in, get links. tempted to call this one get links. I'm just going to call this the links, right? Let me change this to links. Change this into the links. And that should do it. This is, oh yeah, and that was all, so that we could call this just crawl instead of one-click crawl. That's looking right, although that kind of looks ugly. Page underscore links, page links, page links. Nice, nice. Okay, easy to look at, descriptive, and import. And execute the crawl. In fact, before I even do that test, I am going to kernel, restart and clear output. Because you never really are testing in a REPL environment until you clear all your internal variables. Otherwise, stuff is sitting around. Now, all this code isn't really necessary. I'm doing all this just so that I can import the library. You'll recall these notebooks exist for me to create the functions that I then transpose into the Pipulate code base. But I leave it sitting around here just so that you can see how it was developed in case you follow along with the notebook files. I sort of accumulate these things up in a growing set of files that are inside the Python SEO directory. Which are these files here. We got a little bit of file cleanup to do because I plan on putting all this pickle stuff inside a subdirectory here to keep it separate from the notebooks and the .py files. Maybe we'll do that on this round because there is a cleanup that needs to be done. There, Pipulate is imported. But before I do the pickle and the file IO cleanup, I am going to do the user IO cleanup, the input and output here that occurs as a result of the crawl. So as you'll recall, my one little concession to user output here has been a print statement where I just print the number of times web pages have actually been fetched. And as you saw, it got up to 100 and some. I thought it was going to be 1,000 and some, but actually only a few hundred pages, less than 200 pages need to be visited to get the 17,000 links that this process ended with. And so that output should start streaming out to this notebook any time now to show me that the process is working. In the meantime, I can go over here and I can do that LSLA, and we can see that this file that was just 5K on the unvisited and 150K on the visited has now become 5K on the unvisited and 59 on the visited. So that print output should start happening right here because I am calling that function here, pipulate.crawl. So this is so far just with Pipulate import. and then the one call to gather these links. And once again, we can confirm that stuff is happening by just repeating this, and we see these numbers change, although we don't see 4331 is still 4331 and 59. A very strong indication that something is going wrong. So that is not what I want to see happen. So I hit 00. That interrupts, restarts the kernel, and I'm going to double check my work here, specifically with these variable names, because I changed this function from crawl to links. This is what it is. That is now recursion, and we don't want it to be. This one needs to become links. And that's exactly what happened. Whew. We import that. Now you'll see, you might think that would become a 2 because it was just a 1 and I'm re-executing it. But the way I interrupted with hitting the 0 twice on the keyboard was actually a kernel restart. So it is completely back to the first run of this particular virtual machine. And now this, and let me clean stuff up because, right, this is just so much to look at the moment. Yeah, this is about right. I'll just get rid of a few extra lines here, getting the notebook ready for being sort of left around for people to look at. But the real thing is to just run this. One wait. There, that's the output we're expecting. So it's really interesting with just that one tiny little, change, a bug can be introduced, but I like the variable names, the internal variable names, a lot more now. One thing I'll do while this is going on, using this time, is I'll make this feedback more verbose so that I can actually see the crawl getting close to finishing. And since I'm happy with this, also I'll hit the escape key, 00, interrupt the kernel, because there's no reason to keep that crawl running arbitrarily. In fact, I may incorporate some sort of wait or something in here to be a little more polite to the sites. But you will remember that I sort of build this as being a persistent interruptible in the middle crawl, able to pick up where it left off. And it would do that just merely by virtue of the fact it's always working off the hard drive here, always loading these unvisited and visited files with persists all the time down in this loop. So the only thing that makes this not pick up where it left off is the fact that the files are created new here. So I'm going to give crawl a new parameter called restart, and I am going to default it to true. So the crawls are almost always restarting unless you explicitly tell it to restart equals false, and that will make a crawl continue where it left off. But now I need some logic around these two statements, these two persist statements, which create a brand new pickle file. So it's if not restart. And then we just indent those. And now the default way this runs is so that those will in fact be created every time, because the restart defaults to true. So it's starting a new crawl by default every time, unless you set restart equals false or just give false as the second argument of the call to the crawl function. Hardly need to test that right now. I just know that's going to work. But I do want to change that output. Now you'll remember in this for loop I added that I there. and I wrapped this persists statement in the enumerate. So bubblegum. I wrapped this persists statement in an enumerate so that I can now use that I in this print statement. And that I is what you're seeing printed here with a space between it. It's just taking that I and it's just sort of dropping it where that %s for string formatting is, and putting that space in there. But because it doesn't really go on for that long, that many lines, instead of this really efficient way of doing it, where I stick it all on one line, continuously writing line, I can afford to do a line per page visit. And I can report a few interesting things about how the crawl is going on. Maybe the page it's actually visiting, and what else? X of one of, however many. Now that total number that we're doing is actually going to be changing. So, must sound like rambling, but you remember how these numbers were changing over here. I can report on something similar to that, but really the length of the cues that I'm using. So let's do that. It's the length of the cues that I'm using. So instead of this print statement, which is a nice one, I'll keep that around. I am going to be creating a variable on its own instead of sticking it directly into the print statement, doing the string formatting. I am going to be doing %s of %s, and then dropping something that is a tuple in there, something, comma, something. So I is almost certainly going to be one of them, because it's going to report how far in, but it's going to be I plus 1, so that it's like a 1-based index. And pages fetched, so that is pages fetched. It's not of. Now I could try and do an of, because there's this persists thing here, and I could get its size. But it changes as it goes because of this. So, think. I'm going to get the of language out there and just go with what I know is going to be useful information. So it's the number of steps through that outer loop, always useful. But now we actually want the length. Oops. Yeah. Length of visited and length of unvisited. Huh. Okay, so I'll try and make this language a little better. It's unvisited, and visited. There's another string formatting syntax that's becoming increasingly popular, where you do dot format and you put curly brackets inside the string instead of these %s's. But I've gotten in this habit, and it works pretty well for me. So the length of visited, of unvisited, and the length of visited. So that's a tuple right there. It's a 3-element tuple with I plus 1 is the first element, length of visited is the second, length of unvisited is the second, length of visited is the third, and that is being thunked into here, and we just need that to be message equals, and now we can do a print message. And that should be a little bit more useful when crawl. You should import into Pipulate. This will tell you whether the syntax is right. Of course, if the syntax is not right, it will not import right away. And I'm getting my battery warning, so plug in the laptop. Okay, laptop plugged in, so that won't be a problem. Go down here and execute this again, and we'll see the new output. Yeah, of course, time to switch that, to fix that language, that misspelling. So that's all in here. And I have a misspelling in here. We're going to be replacing the ISITEB. Actually, I'm not sure what was in there. Okay. That's the misspelling here, so. Don't put that leading S there. That should do it. Fixing the spelling mistakes. That is definitely a vote for the more integrated IDEs. Gotta fix that spelling. See, more links are always acquired as it goes. This is a number of iterations through that outer loop. Fun, fun, fun with site crawls. It got up to close to 200 here, so it gives us an idea. And this got up to close to 1700, so that gives a pretty good idea of how long it'll wait. I'll just correct this. Unvisited. And it's okay to do that while this is going on because it's already loaded into memory. As you see, it sometimes takes a bit longer on certain pages to fetch. Oh, no, it finished. And there's no error messages, so let's check the length of that. There's that 1700, so it just didn't report the last one. So a few things. First, I guess we want to print done when it's done. Since we're printing all this other stuff, we might as well print done crawl. And what else? We're returning the visited links. There's more I have to say about some of that stuff as I go. Now, it's possible to print the URL as it goes, and that would feel like something that's useful to do. but it's misleading in that as if it has some real meaning, like you can click it and visit it, maybe tempt it. It's just noise. In fact, all this is noise too, except for the fact it's a nice label. It'd be nicer to have some more formatting there. Put a period after the loop iteration, so one dot. I guess it's nicer to have a capitalization for unlisted, capitalization for unvisited, and capitalization for visited. And then to know how long the length is since we're showing all that anyway, once it's out of the loop, it's nice to show a very similar thing, maybe one more message. That's pretty nice. I'll try that one time, and this will be my last one for formatting, because after that I'm going to go for returning a list of the offsite links as part of the returned value. Yeah. Okay, so this is a scope thing, because the MSG, the message variable, is created inside this loop. That last one that's set does not reach outside the loop. We can just fix that by me making the scope start outside of the loop. And the one message that's left over can be printed once the loop is exited, even though, let's see. Maybe I just want to move where the message is constructed. No, this is showing me what it's visiting. It's nice for that. Okay, yeah, this is a pretty good approach. I like this. There's always more than one way to go about these things. Sometimes you forego some of the more clever approaches just because oh, okay, yeah, so return visited. Oh, so it's trying to return visited before. Restart. Oh, restart equals true. If restart, nope, that was exactly what it was. So we do want to do this if restart equals true. It's only if we change restart equals to false. But then I saw that there was an error, so I'm going to have to actually test the restarting of the crawl. Not right now, but first. This is too much code to make you look at. It's time for a new notebook, really, because I'm about to be doing another kind of refinement to this crawl process that no longer needs you to look at where I developed the crawl. But you can see now, it's going to be a lot easier to watch the crawl, numbers going up and down. I no longer have to go over there and look at file sizes. Unvisited waivers goes up, goes down. Visited always goes up. But of course, one of the goals here is to see unvisited drop down all the way to 0. And visited reach its final number, which is the same thing as when we print the length of new links. It should be the last thing reported. It should equal, just for the sake of watching the output and understanding how the crawl is occurring. It's an elegance thing more than it is utility of the function or the output. So you can see unvisited is starting to drop, and crawl is nearing the end. It's nice to have finality to a crawl, isn't it? People who are using all these desktop and web crawling tools where a crawl can go on forever. If you know the kind of crawl you're doing, a very constrained, refrained, polite crawl, then you should always have a finite ending. It shouldn't be quite so open-ended. Of course, there's comprehensive complete crawls, and there it is. Let's see the length of that. Yeah, 1711. Done crawl. Perfect. See, it's really nice. So the output is cleaned up. Some of the internal names, variable names, are improved. And if restart equals false, that should be able to be restarted in the middle. I guess I do want to test that. So instead of 0, 0, which would restart the kernel, I'm just going to hit this stop here once it's a good portion of the way through, enough so that I'll know that the crawl is actually continuing. Stop there. And now that same command over again with restart equals false should pick up the crawl in the middle. Wow. Should be a much shorter run than it was before as this drops down, and there is the big payoff of the pickling. That was exactly what I had in mind when I decided to do my housekeeping with persistent objects. You could work completely in memory, but an interrupted crawl will not get. Now, it only went up to a lesser number of pages, but as you see, that number does in fact change now and again when you do these crawls. So it's actually at 1709. It's reporting a little bit different than that right here, but interrupting in the middle and having these counts, it's probably doing what it's supposed to account for those discrepancies. We would think through what's happening here, but it's time now to restart and clear output and do our final commit on this file and move on to a new notebook as we get ready for the next phase in this crawler's ability, which is to, in addition to returning the list of visited links, I'm actually going to be returning a list of offsite links that found during the crawl, both as a pickled object on the drive and then as a just a part of a list stuffed in. I'll probably do a list of lists again here, where it's both visited and external, something like that is what's coming up. But before I do that, this is a good place to commit, both in Pipulate when I release process on Pipulate is this two-step thing. One for GitHub, where I git commit and git push, and one for PyPy, where I update what people get when they hit install Pipulate. So by the way, if you are following along and you are pip installing Pipulate and it's getting out of sync with what's going on here, I always recommend that you just Google on Pipulate, because I give you the happy magic secret incantation here to always update even what's on your pip install by just executing this command here, which does a few magic things. It installs it only into the virtual environment you're using, and it upgrades and overrides the cache and everything. So no matter how your system is trying to hold on to what it might already have, this is going to override it and put it into the exact correct place on your system. So I'll demonstrate that. You just do that by picking that up in Google Pipulate. You pick up that first command I give you right there. You go into your notebook, which I gotta make sure I keep here in my first location. And then you just paste it into a text box and you execute it like any piece of code, but it's not like any piece of code because of that exclamation point there. It's gonna send this to the command line environment, the Anaconda prompt, rather than to the Python interpreter. So you can see requirements are already met, and it found the existing Pipulate 3.41 I had, and it successfully upgraded that to 3.56, which, as you'll recall, is the one that I just did out here when I updated the setup.py for that. Now, this repo here, git status, is going to have some changes to that multi-page. We really don't need this in here, the repo, so I'll get rid of that. That was just to show you for this video. I'll get rid of these extra things, and then this will be sort of the final state. Of this notebook before we move on. Okay, so it's all updated out there in GitHub on that one. This one is not in PyPy. These are just applications of Pipulate. So you'll notice I've got these two tabs. One is for Pipulate development work, where I'm actually inside Pipulate code, in which case I do GitHub pushes, Git commits, GitHub pushes, and PyPy releases. Whereas when I'm just using Pipulate in a project, it's only the name of the repo in which I'm using the Pipulate import, and then I'm just doing GitHub commits and pushes here, because there's no PyPy release. That would not make sense. So we're done with this, no longer having to look at the development work of the crawl here. Close and halt. It brings back our new, our directory of that location. We should see at least one of them loaded into memory. No, I did a close and halt, so there's not even that. I'll get out my Twitch thing. We want as few tabs as possible open, of course, for focus and concentration reasons. But you are seeing occasionally the fact that I'm pushing up these videos both on Twitch and YouTube. I'm not getting very many views yet on Twitch, but this is really early into the process. I'm doing it just as much for myself as for audience. Again, it's all about commitment and consistency. So that got that work done. Yeah, so this is the end of this Twitch stream. I'll come back as this project goes on to the next stage. I'll at least set the stage for it by going new, Python 3. Really a large point of this entire project is to gather offsite links. So that's going to be the purpose of this notebook, offsite links. And just to spare you in the next video, the manipulate multiple line of code import. I'll just grab that over here. I should have done that before my close and halt. But this is of interest. It's the only piece we need here. And that's my starting point now for the next video. Thanks for joining me in my stream. Hope to stream to you again soon. And thanks for joining me. And don't forget to follow.